Hey, Maria, back with another video. I decided to come back with another video because I can. That's why. And plus, I'm not ready to get into my hobbies until after I eat lunch. So I figured I will just go and do a video because I saw my friend's video, Finding the Truth About Gang Stalking. She did a video called Accumulated Anger and Release and Growth of Release, which got me thinking, because there's so much to this issue. Yeah, I do. I do deal with my anger issues, and I think that I deal with them in a constructive way. The videos are one good way of doing it. But, we are kind of taught to smooth things over, like when you're in school and there's a bully and, the teacher's like, well, two wrongs don't make a right, blah, 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 blah. No, you just shouldn't have to want justice without seeking physical violence, okay? So you don't have to beat up the bully at school. But you do want to have revolution so that you can go on, When I realized that, like, for example, when I was dealing with the workplace mobbings in the past, before I realized that my former family was involved in this targeting operation, I was angry, I was very angry because I knew what was going on was wrong. I know when I was working in Chatsworth, that accounts receivable clerk, I forgot her name, Lisa McIntyre, what a bitch, right? She was a gossip, and she was a wicked person, and her behavior was, completely unethical and completely unjustified. And she stirred up a lot of trouble. And I remember being really angry. And I ended up leaving the company, okay? That's when I was working in Chatsworth. I was angry, and I didn't say anything because I was always worried about losing my job. And, in a mobbing situation, you can stand up for yourself, okay? But that's only going to intensify the mobbing. Now, a good example of this is when I started making my videos. I first started making my videos about my issues relating to being targeted and all the injustices I have. Back in 2015, the same channel I'm on now. Okay, what ended up happening in the beginning was my targeting was becoming intensified, and it was like they really wanted to win. They want to win. And so the same thing with the work issue. When I was over in Chatsworth, knowing that I was dealing with irrational people, I knew that it was beyond my control because I tried everything I could. I worked harder. But I still didn't want to mingle with these people. There was no way in the world I was going to mingle with these people. They were wolves, okay? So I did my job, and I left and went to work, and then I left and went home. I never, mingled or wanted to hang out or anything, So I didn't want to socialize with those people. I wanted nothing to do with them. I remember going on a vacation with these people one time, and I wanted to be away from them. They were perping me, basically, the entire time, and I hated it, right? So I was not really being verbal about it. I did mention it to my boss at the time that I was having problems with her, but she probably knew that my family was behind it, and she always wanted me to, navigate or kind of smooth things over with her, Lisa. And I figured, it was beyond my control. It was not worth it every morning to get up and drive a long distance to be in a situation where I was being harassed every day. And not necessarily by Lisa, but some of her little associates or whatever. And I was tiring. I was sick of the environment, and I didn't feel as though I was getting a fair shake. So I was angry, but I left that company. And so I wanted to start my life over again. So guess what? I ended up moving back to Bakersfield, working for Murray Family Farms, okay? What happened? Everything was fine in the beginning. Everything was great in the beginning. And then all of a sudden, the bullshit started happening. Right around 2010, after I moved in with my ex-husband again, right? And took him to the Christmas party, and things started getting really strange. Okay, so they must have thought that I was seeing Steven or something. Something must have happened. Because when I got back together with my ex-husband at the time, the gossip was just going on, and I was starting to get very upset about it. And no matter what you do in a mobbing situation, because these people are turned against you, you are never going to win in a mobbing situation, okay? Same thing happened. So by the time I left the Murray family farms and started going to these other places where these people were making themselves known, not to identify themselves, but no, I was becoming quite aware that someone was after me, right? I was getting very angry, and I'm still angry to this day, and I resent upholding or regret withholding the confidentiality contract that I had with that company, because even though, there's really no one to tell, but I tried taking this to legal action, getting legal action for it, because I understood that I was being basically prevented from employment, that I was being set up in harassing situations. I was being gang stalked, because, I was walking into certain employers and little skits were being played out and stuff. And I wanted what was rightfully mine, meaning, if you're going to play the fucking let's play with my game with my employment shit, well, then why do I even have to bother with employment? Why don't I just sue for people $1 million for each employer who's fucked my shit up, right? Because I'd be sitting pretty, right? And rightfully so. So the anger has been building up for quite a long time, okay? And I'm not afraid about, the retaliation of these people. I'm not, okay? I'm angry. And I think that, for people who have pent-up anger, I think a lot of people have, not just mental issues, but people have physical issues because they hold back anger. Instead of directing the anger to the proper person who sending it back to the receiver, what do they call it? Send back to the receiver. I forgot that. Whatever. Anyway, sending it back and directing that anger back to where it really belongs. Some people self-harm. You know what I mean? And it's like, why should you take and beat yourself up? Because there's a lot of people who are in this situation, like targeted individuals who are dealing with alcoholism and all kinds of abuse of themselves, but because they don't stand up for themselves, they can't. And it's like, no, I don't believe in holding back your anger. I believe in expressing your anger and dealing with it and cutting it off at the source. Now, my family will never, ever communicate with me, okay? Because they know that I will rip them to shreds verbally, okay? I will not be able to physically harm them because their chicken coward ass would sit there and go and call the cops on me, right? But they would deserve it. They would deserve every brutal thing or violent thing that I would do if I was not a law-abiding citizen, okay? So I deal with my anger in a constructive way. I get angry, and a lot of the anger is beyond your control. Just like the anxiety, the nervousness, the illness, the waking up in the middle of the night, that sort of stuff, it's beyond your control. Because you might go to bed playing a video game or reading something, and then you wake up and it's just like it's there. It's a part of the trauma. It's beyond your control. I will be sitting there and doing something, and something will remind me of that issue. So it's there. And so she talked about standing up for herself, and I think she should stand up for herself. It's long overdue, and you should stand up every time. Now, I understand it's very hard to penetrate narcissists, okay? Because they think to themselves they have such a high, value on themselves. They place themselves so high above that they are not really affected by what you're saying. That's not the point. It's not a point of cutting them down. It's a point of, look, you don't have the right to be in my life. Get the fuck out of it. And that's pretty much the way it is, But when it comes to anger and dealing with it, I engage in my hobbies, and I try to think about positive things, Of course, they've zapped a lot of the positive things out of my life because they're assholes, right? But I try to find constructive ways of dealing with the anger. Arts and crafts is a great way of doing it. If I had true artistic abilities, I could probably, put this into a great work of art, showing a bunch of assholes being murdered. That would be great, right? That would be really a masterpiece is what it would be. Just plowing in a bloodbath. I'd call it bloodbath, just splatters of whatever. But I can't do that, okay? I can't actually do it, and I can't actually do it on a piece of paper either because I'm really not that artistic, right? But yeah, these people have made me very angry, and the anger is going to be long lasting. It will always be there, and some people think, well, She, in her video, was talking about she doesn't know how long she's going to be that way. I ask myself that every day, and I've come to the realization that I'm always going to. It's always going to bring up feelings of hatred. You know, I'm always going to hate these people. You know, because, and if I don't feel that way towards them, then I would be a stupid idiot. You know, I know that we have, we grow up with religious ideas based on, some people do, okay, I'm not talking about you filthy fake people who claim to be, you know, God-fearing. I'm talking about people who take their religion or their spirituality seriously, okay? Yeah, I do believe that you should forgive certain things. Like, for example, I love this in the Bible where, you know, there's a difference between, like when I was younger, my biggest issue was, what was the difference between, why did God forgive Peter for denying him, and I should say Jesus. Why was Peter, you know, forgiven for denying Jesus, and Judas Iscariot wasn't forgiven for what he did? You know, because they're both sins, and they both kind of like ran over, you know, Jesus. But the difference between Peter is that Peter, kind of like the analogy when I mentioned, you know, is it a premeditated murder, or was it more like a crime of passion? Where, like, Peter, they asked him, you know, were you a part of this whole Jesus following? And then he basically kind of denied it at the spur of the moment. He was afraid, he was cowardice, he was weak, and so he made a mistake. It wasn't something that he sat there and thought about for a very long period of time. Whereas Jesus Iscariot had plenty of time to think about what he was doing. Okay, it was a long, drawn-out thing. He knew he was going to get money. He knew he was going to be rewarded for denying and betraying Jesus Christ. So he did it. Okay, he had plenty of time to know the difference between right and wrong. Okay, he made a conscious decision to do what he did. Right. So there's a difference there. Okay, when I understood that when I was younger, that meant a lot to me. You know, it meant a lot to me because we know there are some sins in the Bible that are unforgivable. Denying the Holy Spirit, right? And that's what Judas Iscariot did by doing what he did, right? So there's a difference, okay? So Peter didn't deny the Holy Spirit. Yes, he said he denied Jesus by being affiliated with him, but it was something that he did as a mistake. He was there on the spot, he made a mistake, and he was remorseful about it, right? Judas Iscariot was remorseful because he had to pay the consequence for it. See, there's a difference there. So we understand that we don't want to constantly hold grudges against people because people make mistakes, okay? But I'm the kind of person, if I really take the time to think about what a person's done and where were their motives, how long did it take for them to continue this operation? This operation went on a very long time, okay? Now, it's gone on for many years, the workplace mobbings that occurred before, even Karen's place, the bullying in school, all this other stuff. But we're just talking, just bring it up forward to when I started making my videos and sending them to the employers and all this other stuff, okay? That goes back to 2015. So I can take it back to 30 some odd years, 40 some odd years that I've been alive or whatever, and mention all of that, you know, which I have every reason to resent these people for that crap, okay? But just considering 2015 and onward, okay? That's still a long enough time to know what they were doing was wrong. So I made a decision to not forgive them. And whether, and if I feel as though it is a right decision, you know, my anger is always going to be there. Her anger is always going to be there. Okay, it's just something you have to deal with. So in situations like that, when you realize oil and water don't mix, it's time to move on. You know what I mean? It's time to forget these people. Okay, but whether you forget them or not, certain things are going to come up. You know, like you talk about childhood and things that you used to do, going to school. Who was there at school? You know, your shitty family, right? You think about when you had a birthday, and you think about, you know, your dad bringing home the cake and all this other stuff. Who was there eating the cake? Those motherfuckers, right? You know that these people are always going to somehow be a part of that memory. And when you think about these people, it's always going to be negative. It's never going to be positive. Except for, you know, there were times where, like when I was younger, my sister and I would go to the stores together. We would go to the movies or whatever. But now you look at it now and you realize that was circumstantial. It wasn't because I was her chosen playmate. We were just people who lived in the same house. It was convenient, I guess. There was no real emotional bond there. You know what I mean? Of course, I felt that way towards my sister. I was very protective and concerned. I never wanted people to belittle my sister, but she always made an effort to belittle me. See? So, yeah, we have to deal with our anger, and I think people should, do the best they can to not take things too lightly. Take things seriously. When somebody does creates an offense against you, weigh it up, all right? But never deny yourself the right to feel angry, because by doing so, you are hurting yourself more. If a person deserves to be bitch slapped, you can't do it physically. Don't ever do it physically, okay? But if they deserve to be told off, don't hold back. Don't hold back anything. Tell them exactly what they're doing and why you don't want to have anything to do with these people. Cut them off and don't give them any chance to respond. Okay? Don't let them come creeping back into your life, because these people are who they are and they're never going to change. Okay? They're always going to hold it against you because you were born to be their scapegoat in their mind. Okay? They're never going to be supportive. They're never going to be loving. They're never going to be kind. If they did something wrong to you, and the only reason why they would apologize is because they're placed on the spot. Okay? There are some people in this world that are never going to be any good at all. They're bad seeds or whatever. And they might feel bad about it now, but like I said, why do they feel bad about it? Because everybody knows that they're shit, right? That's why. So, I believe in anger. Okay? I believe it should be justified. And I believe that there are certain people that you just have to cut off. And there should never ever be any sort of feeling of regret when you do that. So anyway, oh goody, it's time for lunch, and I'm making a new recipe today, which I'm excited about. Luckily, I had most of the groceries inside my cabinet already. I got some rice. I'm really excited about making this. I'm hungry. So I'm going to go make my lunch. Have a wonderful day.